I've got an unusual project on the desk today. We are going to be decorating a hat. So I am so excited about this. I've done these before and they are so fun and you can get so creative. It's the possibilities are endless. I actually was awake most of the night last night because my mind would not turn off of the possibilities of what we could do with this hat. So anyway, I kind of made an executive decision about what I was going to do, and I'm going to let you know what I've got on the desk. So let's get started. Alrighty, first of all, I have got this great hat here. It's kind of felt hat. It's a one size fits all. I found this at um, Hobby Lobby, and they had it just the pressing out of the front and everything is just so cool. So anyway, it originally had this little leather stripping around it, so I took that off just so I could have a plain hat. So, all right, the next thing you will need. Oh, and this was only $8, by the way, the hat. Hobby Lobby. Right now is the season to get them. Okay, the next thing you will need is something for your band to go around your band. And I've picked out a leather that's kind of an off-white color. And this is actually ostrich. But you can use any kind of leather. You can get leather from Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Fire Mountain, Crazy Crow, Tandy leather, and then you can also just look online in general and find leather on there of any kind. So I'm using it's kind of a winter white color ostrich. I have some 1/2 inch size carved bone here. This is. And you can use an inch, which is also absolutely beautiful. And I may wind up doing that if I have enough. But anyway, 1/2 inch to an inch carved bone will be fine. Or wood. You can use wood. You can use simulated bone. You can use plastic. They look kind of plastic, but um, you can get simulated bone where it looks pretty much real. But any kind of doodad like this. And then I've got a 6 millimeter decorative silver bead to go on the side of each piece of bone for decoration. Then in between the pieces of bone, as I'm going around the hat, I'm going to have, you can do a 6.0 or an 8.0. This one's a 6.0, and it's a Montana blue seed bead, glass seed bead. And that's going to be an extra filler thing around the band. And then this is copper, and these are a 4 millimeter copper. They're just kind of a hexagon shape. You can use a round bead, a square bead, it doesn't matter. I'm just using this to accent this, just to pull in a little different color with it. Then I've got these right here. These are an 8 millimeter jump ring, and they're pretty thick in their size. They're pretty thick, as you can see, because they're going to connect my hat band on a couple of sides. Okay, and then this is a pewter button right here. And I got this at Crazy Crow, is where this came from. But what I'm going to use this for is I'm going to attempt to flip one side of the brim up. And this is the button I want to use to make it hold it together and hold it down. Okay, you will need some sinew. And this is artificial sinew. We've used this before in a lot of our Native American projects. This is very inexpensive. I know when you initially buy it, you think, oh my gosh, this is way expensive, but it's not in the long run. So some artificial sinew. Obviously, you'll need a hole punch of some kind with an itty bitty tiny hole in it, not a big one. Okay, and you will need some uh, E6000 jewelry glue, or you can use a hot glue gun, but I prefer the E6000, and that's just my choice. And then you'll need something to spread this with, whether it's a toothpick or you could use a little teeny tiny palette knife, artist palette knife. I use this funky needle right here. This thick needle is what I use. It's like has such a dull point on it, so I use that to spread mine. But you can use anything you want to spread it. Okay, I may have to raise my camera if I can, but anyway, let me get my head around it and we'll get started. Okay. Oh, one other thing you're going to need is an amazingly sharp pair of scissors. So, and I think I told you guys these are Wusthof and model number 5558. And I use these to trim the edges of my leather because they are super, super sharp. Yeah. One other thing you might need is a lighter. And because we got to clean the edges, you know, of the leather once we've cut it. Okay, trying to move things out of the way. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure the top of the hat. So I just take a piece of string of some kind, it doesn't matter what, and start it at the base of the hat, down on the bottom, and just wrap it around, push it down to make sure that it's pushed down to the edge right here where the crease of the bill of the hat it hits. Make sure you push that down all the way so you don't have any buckling there on it. And then once you figure that out, cut your string right there where that is. And then this is how long you're going to cut your leather piece to go around the band for the band of your hat. Okay. Now, with that, I went ahead and I pre-cut my leather. And one of the things you need to be aware of is when you know, the hat, what it does is from this point where the crease is coming up to the top of the hat, it goes at an angle. It's not straight up like a top hat is straight up. These type of hats go at a very slight angle up. So if you get your band too wide right here, you're going to have some wavy, buckly, wavy looking things as you make your way around the rim of it here, because of that slight slope there, that just barely slight slope, it is enough to make that waffly look on your band. So you want to make sure that the band is small enough on a hat that does that. If you've got a hat that goes straight up, it's no issue. But with these, it's got that angle. And so you want to make sure that the band is small enough, narrow enough, that you don't have that that buckly, waffly look. Okay, so what I did was when I cut this one, I cut it at, I want to say it was yeah, it is 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8, maybe 1 5/8. It's narrow. It's not real wide because I don't want that waffly look. I want it to fit flush and flat up against the hat itself. Okay. Now, because my leather that I chose was not long enough for me to cut one solid strip to go around the base of the hat, I had to piece it. And I knew I was going to have to do that. So I thought about it ahead of time before I did it. So I'm going to tell you what I did next. All right, so what I did was I knew that I was going to be bending the side of the hat up. One side of it's going to go up like this on the side. Okay, I'm going to do that with one of them. That's where this is going, right there. Almost looks piratey, doesn't it? But it's not a pirate hat, but it can give it, lend it that kind of feel a little bit. A sassy hat. Okay, so what I decided to do was, since I knew that these two pieces right here were going to be about this far apart, I went ahead and cut a middle piece to connect these two, and I am going to use copper jump rings to connect these two pieces. So what I did was I went ahead and I took my hole punch and I wanted three rings. So I punched three holes right here on this end of the piece of leather and three holes on this end of the piece of leather. That's for my jump rings. And then I will go back and I will add three holes to this piece and three holes to this piece. That's the next thing. Okay. So I'm going to take an ink pen, doesn't matter, marker, doesn't matter. And I'm just putting three dots equally on each end of my leather piece. All right, then I'm going to take my trusty hole punch and I'm going to punch holes right there on those three spots. I'm going to flip it. All right, close that up. All right, so now all my leather has holes. Everything has holes in it, ready to go to add the jump rings. Okay. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to add this piece of leather to the hat. Now, the side I'm going to flip up over here is going to be on this side, which would be my left, your right as you're looking at it. Oh, I forgot. You do need to do this. If you've got a piece of leather that's kind of got some rough edges after you've cut it, and I do this with every piece of leather I ever work with. Take your lighter and burn off those edges like that. Just go straight down and it'll make them real crisp and clean. All right. And turn it around right there. And sometimes those things appear after you've handled the leather quite a bit. It'll appear. I had a few on this one after I handled it and cleaned it up a little bit. All right. Okay, so I've cleaned up my edges. All right, next we'll put it on. All right, so what I have done at this juncture is I cleaned up my edges and I have temporarily put the band around the hat. And this is the side I'm going to flip up, so I'm leaving that open to add my extra piece right here. And I've brought it around. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my E6000 and I'm going to dab it in just different spots, dab it so it'll stick to the band. All right, I'm dabbing. I've got a little bit of glue, not a lot. You can see it's just a little dot there. And I've already secured this section right here. So I'm going to move here a little further down and just dab just a little bit inside and just kind of spread it a little bit and push it down with your finger and press it down because you want to make sure that it goes down to the bottom of the brim. Don't want any air in there or space in there. Keep pressing it. Now this takes a minute to dry, so you're probably going to have to let it sit for a little bit once you've done that. Okay, let me do the next section. And I'm just going to do this all the way around the band. Just picking a spot. And then I'm pushing it with my finger. And I'm holding back here with my thumb where I started back here. Pushing it with my finger forward and down because you want it tight next to that brim, remember? Just keep spreading. It'll spread a little bit more underneath. Okay. Next section. Put one right there. And I'm just pushing that around. This is going to be so funky, 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 funky. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go around this curve and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've got the first part of the band on and I'm just going around it with my hand. You can see I'm just pressing it down while it's drying, just pressing, making sure everything's tight. Once it completely dries and it doesn't move anymore, you can go back, and if you see any little edges around here that may be there may be a little tiny gap in there, just put a dot, just a dot of E6000 on it there, and it will close it up. I'm putting a cap on that just for a second, and it'll close up any of those little gaps. So continue to just get to know your hat. Just kind of rub your hands around it. Get to know your hat while that glue is drying. All right. And it'll help shape it. Okay, so here's where we are so far. Is this not the most fun? I'm getting ready to add this section with the jump rings. Okay. And I left a little bit of a gap right there just so I could get my jump ring underneath there. I didn't do it, glue it down real tight. So, okay, next section. What I am doing now is I'm taking my jump rings and I'm opening them up. And then I am taking them and running them between the appropriate holes that connect. So this is hole number 2. I don't know if you can see it this direction or not. I'll try to do it this way. And you just have to work with it. Maybe yeah, let me do this. Maybe I can get my finger in there a little better. See the hole. Well, pop, 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 pop. Get another one here. Trying to see the hole. And just be patient. Don't get frustrated if something's not happening just exactly like it's supposed to at the moment, just like I dropped my jump ring. It's okay. You know, it'll be just fine. All right, I'm trying to find that hole. There it is. All right. Got it through the first hole. Going to turn it, bring it through the second hole. There it is. All right. And if you pull your band up a little bit from where you glued it, that's fine. That you can just stick it back down. All right, there's number 2. You can see where we're headed. All right, number 3. I started with the one closest to the brim because it was the hardest one to do. So, because it's the tightest spot, so to speak. All right. Thread that back through there like that. There it goes. Top one was easy because you have more space. All right. So that is what it's going to look like. Isn't that fantastic? Oh my goodness, that's so exciting. Okay, I'm going to put the other 3 on this end and then I'll get back. Alrighty, I have got the pieces together. Is that just not the coolest ever? Oh my gosh. So I went back and I Once I got these on and they are good and tight, I went and put some E6000 under here and a section about right here and a section about right here and one right in here because I wanted to make sure everything was down good. Now, this section in the middle, I left it open because you got to have a place for your feathers to go in because there will be some feathers on this hat too. You don't have to do feathers. I usually do because they're just fun and funky, but you don't have to do them. But I left a little space open here so that I can get a feather stuck down at an angle in like that. Okay, so if you're planning on using some feathers, make sure you leave a space in your band. Whether you did this or not, make sure you leave a space in your band so that a feather can go through. Okay, all right, next next thing. While your band is drying, doing its drying a little more so it'll be a little more secure, measure out a piece of sinew that will make the circle around your hat all the way, plus about this much left over, which is probably 6 to 8 inches left over. Because you're going to want something, you got to be able to tie this off, and you may want to add some more decoration once you get this on there. So in the meantime, make sure you cut it off with extra, go around the hat and then extra. So once you've done that, and we've done this before, the sinew right here is flat. You can see it's wide and flat, and we're going to make it into a small little piece of thread. So we're going to take it between our fingers and just twist like this. And I'm going to take this side, I'm going to pull with this hand and twist with this one. And just go straight down. This is how we do the chokers, the Native American chokers, which we will be doing some of those as well here real soon. But just pull it down with one hand and twist with the other. You're making it into a small piece of thread. Isn't this fun? Let me tell you, this will give your hand muscles a workout. All right, so once we've done that, now this is going to be a decorative part that will be going around the hat, the base of the hat, around this section right here at the base of the hat. Okay, so this is my front. You can see the dips on either side. This is my front. So I want to take my pieces of bone and I'm going to spread them out evenly around the hat as I'm going. Let me clip off an end of this sinew here so I don't do 152 pickup. But I definitely want to have a piece of bone right here in the front center of the hat on this little section, you know, this little pointed section right here. I definitely want a piece of bone here on that front part. So I'll probably start right there just to make sure that I have it front and center. And then I'll add the other. So I'm flanking each piece of bone with one of those little silver beads. So I'm going to put that on first. And periodically you will have to twist the end of your sinew because it will fray after a while. So it looks like this. This is where you're going with that. And you can use anything. You can anything. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have this specific thing. You can use anything. All right. And then the next thing we're going to do is add, and this one I'll have to eyeball because I have no idea at this juncture how many of these seed beads are going to fit in between each piece of bone. So I'm going to eyeball it at this juncture. So I'm going to add, let's say I'm going to add, let's add 8. Let's do 5. 5. Uh, and it may vary between each piece of bone, so you can spread it out. That's 5. Let's do 7. 7 seed beads, 1 of the copper beads, and then 7 more of the seed beads. And we'll see if that's too many. You'll probably have to play it by ear depending on the hat that you have, because not every hat is the same, as we know. There's different sizes. This one happens to be an adult one size hat, but you know hats that are really expensive, they are sized to the person's head. So if somebody's doing a custom job, it will require a lot of measuring. And so this is no different, even though it's a smaller project. All right, and then we're going to put another piece of bone. One of these. All right, let's see where this lands here. So that's the front. Okay. That's about what I wanted. Okay, that's about it right there. All right, so I'm gonna put a clip on the end of this so that it'll stay put right there. Okay, I'm gonna turn it so you can see it. All right, so I've got my piece of bone right here, front and center of this piece of the hat, part of the hat on either side of these dips. Then this particular measurement, I've got 7 blue beads, a copper bead, 7 blue beads, and then the next set of bone. And then I'll put a few blue beads right here down to my rings. But that will pretty much put me front and center. So I'm going to go ahead around, all the way around with this same pattern. I'll have 7 blue beads, a copper, 7 blue beads, silver, bone, silver. And I'll go all the way around the hat till I get to the other side. Okay? I'll be back. All right, I have got that section beaded all the way around. You can see I started in the front here. Here's my centerpiece. I haven't connected it yet. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. But you can see I'm centered here at the front of the hat with the piece of bone. It comes around here where the jump rings are, and then it continues the blue beads down to about the middle way of this. Okay, and then we're coming on around, and this is one of those things that check and check often. Okay, so on this particular hat, I've got 7 of the blue beads, a copper, and 7 of the blue beads, and then this little bone decorative piece here. So I went all the way around to the back. As you can see, I'm going all the way around here. And then I'm back over here to the side that we connected with the jump rings. And I've beaded the blue all the way under right here where these almost meet. And then what I'm going to do with this is just tie this off right here, this into a knot, a really tight knot. That's all I'm going to do. Okay. Unfortunately, I have to turn it towards me to do it. So, but anyway, I'm pulling it really taut, and I'm just tying literally a knot like you tie on your shoe. Nothing fancy, no barrel knots, nothing like that. And you want it really tight. Making sure I've got it there. Holding it with my finger there on the bottom. All right, so that's just my knot right there. I'm gonna make one more knot over the top of it. All right, so I did a double knot right here. You can see I got some, it's probably hard to see with the black, but I did a double knot right here where these two pieces come together. All right, and then I left the dangles right here. Remember I told you to leave the dangles because you might want to add some beads on that. All right, the next thing we're going to do is secure this to the hat. And all we're going to do is take some E6000 and we're going to put a little dab underneath each piece of bone here where it connects, hits the white, just right underneath there. And then we're going to push it down and hold it until it kind of grabs. And we're going to do it under every piece of bone. All right, so I'll do the first one here so we can see it. Oh, I lost my little doodad. Okay, we'll just use this one. And it's not going to take a whole lot. Don't put a big glob on there, because if you put a big glob on there, it's going to come off on your hat. So you just want a little small, I don't know if you can see that or not, just a little small dab right there. And I'll start with this one. I'm just going to pull it up just a little bit, put that spot of glue under it, and push it back down. Press it with your finger. Okay. Going to the next one. Go just a little tiny spot of glue. I'm going to barely pull it up, put it on the bone, and push it back down with your finger. Hold it there for a few minutes. All right, going to the next one. Little teeny tiny dab of glue, just a little bitty bit. We're going to barely, just barely pull up that piece of bone. Not very much, just barely. Put the glue on there, push it back down. Push it down with your finger. And hold it there. All right, we'll do one more. And then I'll finish the rest of them. Just a little tiny dab. Pull it up just barely, put it under the bone, and push it back down with your finger. And then hold it there. It's almost like you're pushing down and in, because you want it to connect to the felt on the hat, but you also want it to connect to the leather or whatever your band is on there. I put leather on mine. Yours might be cloth. I don't know. But anyway, you want the bone to adhere to the band itself and to the hat itself. So, all right, I'm going to continue this and I'll be back. All righty, I've got everything glued down all the way around. I put a spot, little tiny spot under each piece of bone all the way around the hat, like so. Now, once you've done this, you may want to let it dry a little bit before you start on your next section. You want to make sure it's adhered really good to the hat itself and to the piece of the band. So you don't want it to move. So it would be good if you just let it dry a little bit first before you start on the next section. We are now at the button phase and the feather phase. That's where we are now. So I've let this set just a little bit. It's still not quite as dry as what I would like it, but I'm going to work very gingerly with it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we wanted to make a flap on this hat to give it this kind of look. And I decided to use this pewter button that I had, that I got from Crazy Crow, and I think it'll pull in the silver that's on the edges going around. But yeah, so what we're going to do is we're turning the inside of the hat around, because that's where you're going to be punching your holes. You're going to lay your button if you're doing this particular thing. If you're not doing this, don't worry about it, just fast forward. But anyway, you're going to take something with a marker or whatever that has an extremely sharp tip that will go through the holes of this little button, and you're going to mark both of those holes. Okay, you got to be able to see them. Once you've done that, take a hole punch, or you can take a really hefty needle, it doesn't matter, and you're going to punch a hole where those two marks are. Okay, so then the next thing you're going to do is fold it up, and then you're going to take your needle and you're going to punch a hole all the way through. I've already done mine, so to the other side of the inside of the hat. You can see it right there. I've pulled the needle all the way through, just like that, made a hole. Then you come back to the other side and you stick it through and pull it through from the inside right there. Okay, and that way you'll have your holes marked on your brim and also on your hat. Okay, so before we add that touch right there, we're going to pick out some feathers. Well, we're getting close to being to the end of this project. Oh, I'm going to put the feathers on, and then we'll put the pewter button on, and we are done. Unless we think we need to add something else, but for the most part. Okay, so what I have done is I have picked out these two brown. These are chicken feathers. My neighbor has some of the more exotic chickens, and so when I go over to feed them snacks or put extra water in for them, whatever, I always look around to see if they've dropped any feathers, and if they have, I picked them up. So, but I brought them home, I cleaned them, and I have a video out that I did several months ago on how to paint just little small things on feathers to kind of decorate them. But I also talked about cleaning them, and I'll speak about that again just in case you don't want to go back and watch the painting. But what you do is when you bring your feathers home, get warm water, a little bit of Dawn dishwashing liquid, and you can put a few drops of that in a bowl big enough that you can put the feathers in. Get some suds going, put the feathers in there, kind of shake, swish them a little bit like this, real gently, because you don't want to separate too much of the shaft from the feather from the shaft. So just barely kind of shake them like this under the water to clean them. And then if there's anything still on them, just barely take your finger and just barely go with the grain of the feather and just kind of barely touch it between your thumb and forefinger to clean anything off that may be stuck. All right. Then take them out of the soapy solution, put them under some running water with the feather going down like this. With the water running this way. You don't want the feather straight up and the water running down. It'll separate all of the little pieces of the feather from the shaft. So you want to put it down and let the water run over it to get the soap out. Barely take your fingers and just barely run it like this. Lay it on a paper towel to dry, or a really light blowing blow dryer. Blow with the grain of the feather. Don't blow against it. Blow with it if you're going to use a blow dryer. And just let it dry naturally, and you should be okay. All right. That said, let's get the feathers on. Remember, I told you to leave a little bit of a space right down here under this part of the band. I told you to leave some space in there for the feathers. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the feathers inside the band, and I'm going to fan them out just so they're decorative. And when you're picking feathers for your hat, remember to get feathers that are going with the angle of the hat. You don't want feathers going back this way. Well, you can. It depends on what you're trying to do. But in this case, I'm wanting the feathers to go with the angle of the hat. And let's see here. I'll take the skinnier one first, and then I'm going to take just a little spot of my E6000. All right. And then I am going to take the glue. I'm going to stick it down inside the brim, the inside of the band, not the brim, the band. Get one more spot here. Opening this up with a little bit of a, and I'm spreading that out in there. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I said I'm just going to start with the, let's see here, the shorter one. I'm going to start with the shorter one. I'm going to stick it down inside where I put the glue, as far down as I can get it, push it down in there. All right. Then I'm going to take the next one, and I want it to kind of hang off the back of the hat. So I'm going to push it down a little further where it kind of looks like that. Because remember, this brim is going up, this edge of the brim is going up too. And then to make sure I'm not covering up too much of the feather, I'm going to do this, push my brim up just to see. And we're looking good right there. Okay. Move that real quick so I have a little more space. All right, I'm making sure that's down in there good. And I'm going to push it with a little something, a little pointer. All right, and then I'm going to press that and hold it. And you're going to let that dry a little bit. And these are blue jay feathers that I found and I've cleaned. And I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to stick these in here since we have blue beads. I might do one. So I'm going to play here just for a minute and see where it's going to land once I push my brim up. Kind of like it like that between these two. So I'm going to glue him down on there. Just a little bit of glue. It won't take much for him. He's small. He's a small little guy. I go and look under my bird feeders ever so often because my blue jays always drop feathers at the bird feeder. All right, I'm going to put a little glue on the tail end of the shaft here. Just like that. I'm going just around the shaft. All right. And I'm going to gently stick it kind of between these two, just barely. I'm going to turn him just a little bit, trying not to damage my feathers. There we go. We saw today, my husband and I, it was the funniest thing, y'all. Ken said, "There's a hawk in the yard. There's a hawk in the yard." And I'm like, "Well, give me a minute to get my hands dry." I was washing dishes. And we thought he had a snake. And he kept throwing this thing up at Ken said, "Is it a snake?" And I said, "I don't know." So anyway, we watched him through the window so he wouldn't scare him. And then all of a sudden he flew off. And I thought, well, where in the heck did he go? So we went out to see what it was he dropped. And it was a stick, y'all. He was playing with a stick. Can you believe that? He had a stick that was probably this big around, and it was about that long. You're talking maybe, 8 inches long, big fat stick. And he was throwing it up and throwing it up and catching it and throwing it up. And I thought, well, even a hawk plays. Oh my goodness. It was such a treat. Just, we were just bumfuzzled by it. It was just hilarious. But yeah. Okay, so I've got my feathers in here like this. I'm going to let these dry. I'm going to play with it just a little more, but I'm going to let this dry really good, and then I'll put the last thing on, which would be the button. Okay, last things, guys. I let the feathers dry a little while, and now we're getting ready to put on the last thing. So we're going to fold your brim up, stick your needle through the hole you made and into the other hole that you made. Pull your sinew through. You're using sinew, by the way, not thread. Come on, pull on through there. I can't get a grip on it. There we go. All right. So I pulled that through that hole, then I'm going back through the next hole next to it. And into the hole right there. There you go. Take your time doing this because it just takes time. You can't do this in a hurry. There we go. All right, so I've got it pulled tight from the inside. It's tight right there. I don't know if you can see it. Probably not, but anyway. Okay, then we're going to put on the button, just the better side. I think this one. We're running it through the hole like so, and turning it. Gosh, I hope my battery doesn't run out. All right, and then I'm going to run it through the other hole. Push it down. And it's going to take a little bit of hand strength to hold it. Need to hold it, hold. Okay. Then you're going to go back through the other hole, push it through. You'd think it'd be easier since it's gone through there once, but no. If you were doing thread, you wouldn't have a problem. But this is sinew, and it's strong, and it's what's going to hold that thing in place. I'll tell you that right now. All right. Then you're going to come back through again. And I have to hold it this way because I cannot see it. There it is. Back through your hole again. I'm sorry you guys can't see this. Well, doo-dah, doo-dah. There it is, Shaw. It's right there. This is like anything when you're sewing anything on from the inside out. It's hard to find your holes sometimes. It's right there. There it is. Finally. But don't get in a hurry and don't get frustrated, alrighty? This is what it is. Alrighty. Okay, I think I've got it down there where it's going to hold pretty good. I'm going to go one more time through here. I'm kind of an overkill when it comes to stitching because I want to make sure that the thing does not come apart anywhere. All right, one last thing. And go back through the other side. That's the little hole again. Y'all, this is just too freaking cute. It's going to be real cute if I can get my needle through there. You almost, there it is. Almost need I have a low battery, so I'm hurrying. There it is. Okay, so take your needle off. Pull that tight like that. Tie a knot. Like so. Okay, and that is done. All right, last thing. Alrighty, the very last thing we're going to do here, and I'm going to be talking super fast because my battery's almost gone. All right, so we're going to decorate the little button here on the side. You can see I did one right there. Got one more left. So I'm going to add 2 pieces of the copper. All right, I'm going to add the little silver bead that we've been using all the way around. A piece of horn. Another silver bead. And another piece of copper. Going to pull that all the way up to the top right there, like that. And then I'm going to tie off this end. I'm just going to tie knots in it on the end. Oh, y'all, this is so exciting. Oh, so exciting. And I'm just tying a knot on the end of this like you tie in your shoe. Nothing fancy, just a knot, because you're going to burn this off to seal it on the bottom so that it doesn't come off. Do one more. Y'all, this was so much fun. I just love this. I know it was hard to see some of it, but hopefully you got the gist. Okay, I'm going to clip the excess right here off, right next to the knot that I cut. My knot that I made. And then I'm going to take my lighter and I'm going to burn off this end here to make a little seal. Press it with my finger. It will burn your finger if you're not used to it. All right. We are done with this project. Oh my gosh, guys, look at this fun hat. I love it. What a fun way to start fall. We're going to do another one a little bit later on in a different color, different style. But yay, yeehaw. Hope you enjoyed this. If you got any inspiration, please like and subscribe and comment. I will respond to you. And I thank you so much for joining me on my channel. I will see you guys on the next video. Bye.